Ladies and gentlemen, growing up as a shy little girl in Senegal, I used to ask myself a lot of questions and actually to bother my family with them. And I remember at that time, my most favorite question was to try and understand why our continent was so rich in natural resources, yet the least developed. And fast forward to 2015, I was privileged enough at the age of 28 to lead what is the largest e-commerce player in Nigeria and now in Africa, which is Jumia. And I had more and more questions bugging me about Nigeria. For instance, I had hard times understanding how the country could export its finest quality leather to Italy while importing every year more than 22 million pair of shoes from China. I also had hard times understanding how the country could export every year great quality cotton to China while importing tons and millions of clothes in the country. And it's the case in all of Africa. We import roughly $1 billion of value of clothes. And I also had hard times understanding how Nigeria could export its crude oil and keep importing refining oil. That being said, growing up in my journey as a tech entrepreneur and investor, I had even more questions bugging me, and I wanted to run some of them by you this morning. I'm sure you know that Africa has already today the same population and same GDP as India, with 100 more mobile phones than India. Then, how is it possible that Indian startups attracted 17 times more funding in venture capital than African startups? I'm also sure that you know that Africa is the fastest growing region in terms of mobile phone subscriptions and e-commerce shoppers. Then how is it possible that when we look at the e-commerce B2C index, out of the 9 least prepared countries for e-commerce, 9 are Africans out of the 10. The first country in this index out of Africa is Mauritius, and it ranks at, I think, the 55th place. I'm sure you can see how Rwanda is a hinterland country and Côte d'Ivoire has direct access to the sea. So how can it be possible that the internet cost of 1 megabyte of data is $8 in Rwanda and $60 in Côte d'Ivoire? Why is that? And the list goes on and on again. And on a personal standpoint, there were at least 3 questions that were keeping me awake at night. The first one was looking at the US having 1 retail outlet for 400 inhabitants, while Africa has 1 retail outlet for 60,000 inhabitants. And to me, that is a massive driver and main driver behind the success of Jumia. It's not necessarily that it's the best tech platform or anything. It's because of this kind of paradox. I'm also always surprised to see how Africa can be only 3% of the worldwide global trade. And when I deep dive, I can see logistics costs for SMEs as a major hindrance of competitiveness. For instance, in East Africa, it can be up to 75% of logistics costs represent as a percentage of total merchandise. In US, it's 6%. 6% versus 75%. And that's why my team and myself, for instance, piloted an export platform for Ivory and SMEs last December. It's called Jetsport. And I have a third question that I'm very passionate about, which is a funding gap, because we see tremendous opportunities, tech-enabled on our continent. We see also the talent. We have the same, even better talent, resilient, but issues with access to funding. And that's why I started a couple of years ago being a business angel and professionalized it, launching a studio, investing in Ivorian and West African tech startups, and now closing actually a VC fund to be able to fund more African and young startups to help leverage technology to bring not only economic performance as a result, but a double bottom line, also creating better and faster ways to have access to essential services such as healthcare and education, improve access to employment. BCG is predicting that e-commerce by 2025 will bring at least 3 million net jobs in Africa, and also help our SMEs have better access to markets, to capital and capacity. because we all have to remember that at the end of the day, this is not a technology problem. It's not a feel-good stories or only an inclusion program. It's about leveraging technology to actually drive development, and there is a business case for it. But at the end of the day, I think we are also all tired of asking ourselves endless questions. And what makes me feel great today to be with you is I think if there is anyone in the world who have great answers, but more than answers, the capacity to drive change, it's you. Head of states, policymakers, private sector, institutions, investors. So I hope that when we meet next year, it will be to report less and less unanswered questions, have more and more answers, but more progress. So this is not, I hope, another speech with great facts and figures and stories, but a call to action. Thank you.